So now we're going to talk about control recommendations. Number 2 part is recommend a control to address each of these deficiencies. Now, the point is, to be honest with you, I think that's the easiest part of the question if you're comfortable with the deficiency, because you simply have to tell what needs to be done to overcome that deficiency. So what should happen is that, for example, in the case of sales ledger clerk setting up credit limits, a senior official should authorize the credit limits for new customers which may be reviewed from time to time. Maybe they could be increased, they could be decreased. Just like banks, they allow you, they offer you that they want to increase your credit limit for the credit card if your credit history is nice. So for the new customers, a senior official should authorize the credit limits for new customers rather than sales ledger clerks. Okay, the other problem was sales order numbers were in lack of sequence. So sequential numbering of sales orders, or sequential numbering and pre-numbered, already the numbers should already be there, of sales orders should be introduced, and someone from the management should also undertake sequence checks on a random basis to identify / resolve any exceptions. So that's another simple control: sequential numbering, pre-numbering of the sales order. Then the other problem was segregation of duties. So the simple thing is, what control would you recommend? Segregation of duties between posting of bank receipts, sales ledger updation, and bank reconciliation. And bank reconciliation to identify frauds / errors. You could even say that bank reconciliation should be reviewed and approved by independent persons. That could be another control which you could talk about. Okay, so now purchase invoice, the only document count controls were used. So invoice value control should be introduced, which involves, what is that control going to, which involves ensuring that the correct invoice values have been entered in the system. Standard costs not updated. So the simple solution is standard costs must be updated on a regular basis, preferably by defining a suitable frequency. And that way, I mean, they're likely to approximate the actual costs. Because overtime approval is happening after the payment is done, so production director should review and approve overtime prior to the same being sent to the payroll department for processing. So you've just altered the timing of the control. Now the difficult part starts. Now the difficult part starts. And what is that? Describe a test of control. That is the difficult part. One thing you know about it is there's going to be an A, there's going to be a B, there's going to be a C. Now, you are obviously not going to include that in your exam answers, but I am including them for the purpose of clarification. So now I'm going to teach you on what A, what B, and what C means. This may be a bit irritating for those of you who have not attended my regular classes, but the students who've been in my regular class, this should be quite familiar to them. So it's not something difficult. I'm just going to explain that. I gave you an overview yesterday. Now I'm going to apply it. So I mean, if you look at how you generate your control test of controls, you would be quite clear that we're going to have we would be inspecting something. What are we inspecting? Overtime sheets. And what are they used to determine? If they have signature of the production director or approval, you could say approval of the production director before the date of the payment. So that's how you will be attempting this question. Now, again, 18 marks. Out of these 18 marks, no one is asking you to get 18 out of 18. But I think 9 marks should be doable, or 10 marks should be doable, shouldn't sound too difficult. But the approach has to be robust like the one that I've taught you. Now, let us proceed to the next part of the question, or next part of the paper, and that is Frisia Co deducts employment taxes from its employees' wages and salaries on monthly basis. That happens in most of the countries, and pays these to the local taxation authorities in the following month. At the year end, the financial statements will contain an accrual for employment tax payable. Fair. Describe the substantive procedures the auditor should perform to obtain sufficient and appropriate evidence in respect of Frisia Co's year-end accrual for employment tax payable. And this is for 4 marks. So if this is for 4 marks, it means the examiner is expecting you to write 4 audit procedures for the employment tax payable accrual. Now again, you're going to have, because it's a substantive procedure, which is an audit procedure, so you're going to have an A, you're going to have a B, you're going to have a C. Similarly, for 2, you're going to have an A, you're going to have a B, and you're going to have a C. I'm repeating once again, you're not going to do it this way in the exam. This is just for tutorial purposes that I am saying A, B, and C. You're not going to mention that in the paper. That's a top trick that I use to teach my students. Now, Now I'm going to tell you how you write your substantive procedures. Now, when we talk about substantive procedures, please remember the definition. Let me take you back to the definition of a substantive procedure, and that is, what is a substantive procedure? It's an audit procedure at assertion level. The purpose is to detect material misstatements. And there are two types of substantive procedures. One is a test of details, and the other is a substantive analytical procedure. And substantive analytical procedure means easy marks. So I'm quickly going to now take you back to the exam technique. There's something analytical procedures over here. I'm first going to pick this up. So what I'm going to say, whenever you have to perform analytical procedures, what you can do is, how would you perform analytical procedures? You would say compare for performing analytical procedures, or you could say analytical procedure involving comparison of current year's accrual with the prior period's accrual. And what is the end point? Always remember, whenever you are recommending an analytical procedure, it involves comparison of this year number with the prior period, this year number with the budget, this year's number with the last month, this year number with the industry, for example. But the end point, please take that into account and investigate significant differences and obtain corroborative evidence. So what are you going to do? You're supposed to investigate significant differences, and you're supposed to obtain corroborative evidence, right? You're supposed to investigate significant differences, and you're supposed to obtain corroborative evidence. That is a standard procedure which you can incorporate in most of your questions. So easy marks. What could be the other ways? Look at this toolkit. What can I choose from here? Recalculation. So I could recalculate a sample of tax deductions to determine if they are as per the applicable tax laws. Then, if at the year end their employment tax is payable, it would be paid in the following month, right? So you could compare the accrual with the actual payment. So how would you do that? You could inspect original bank statement. Which bank statement? Of the following month, or the month after the year end, to determine if the payment approximates or is close to the accrual. That could give you comfort that the accrual has been appropriately calculated or determined. So that's like some key procedures. 4 marks, again, I mean, getting this mark shouldn't be difficult. This is relatively straightforward, right? Now the 4th, so there are easy marks. I mean, within this question, the first and the second procedure shouldn't be too difficult. Now, what could be a 4th procedure? fourth procedure could be that you could inspect disputes or correspondence with tax authorities post year end. Again, the idea is to determine if there is an allegation of inappropriate tax deductions. You could get some idea over there. So you see, you have in all your procedures, you have an A, you have a B, and you have a C. Now, what is C? Assertion. So we're trying to determine if the accrual, the value of the accrual is appropriate, if it exists, if it is complete. So you could even perform tests on the completeness of the accruals. So another procedure could be, for that matter, if you think about the completeness, you could inspect what the accruals listing and match with payroll listing to confirm that all employees' tax deductions have been made. Because if that is not the case, then potentially there's a problem or the accrual is incomplete. So when you are generating your substantive procedures, you need to think in terms of assertions first. What are the assertions? Let me quickly take you through them. Occurrence, completeness, accuracy, cutoff, classification, presentation, existence, completeness, accuracy, rights and obligations, classification, presentation. Another idea. Now, these assertions give you ideas actually. So you could get another idea. Okay, classification. So, or presentation. So I could generate another procedure that way. What is that procedure? I could say, because I haven't performed any procedure on presentation, so I could inspect draft financial statements to check if employment tax payable is appearing in the other payables note to the financial statements. So you see, your assertions, they actually inform your thinking process. Whenever you get blank in the exam, think about assertions. If you're not able to get anything from assertions, think about IFRS. If you're not able to find anything from IFRS, then think about auditing standards. We're going to apply that today. We've applied it through assertions. I mean, most of my procedures are helping you to verify the valuation, the existence, the completeness, the presentation of the employment tax payable.